Welcome to the Chronicles of Lost Relations. Before we dive into today's narrative, we want to share that a friend of ours has launched a YouTube channel where he has taken on the tale of a sniper's struggle for survival and presented a unique interpretation of the story. Kindly visit his channel. You'll find a link in the description box. So, make your way over there and lend a hand with a like and a subscribe. Let us embark on today's narrative. Growing up in a quaint town just outside of Chicago, I always believed my family was my foundation. We were not the kind to let words linger unspoken or to drift apart for months without communication. My brother Chris and I shared a bond that was marked by the spirited rivalry typical of two boys living together. He was a year my junior, and comparisons between us were a constant presence. He embodied charm and a carefree spirit, whereas I leaned towards being more methodical and strategic. Our sister Jane, the youngest, was perpetually the baby of the family, forever in our mom's orbit, absorbing every ounce of attention available to her. Our parents, Susan and Brian, embodied the essence of Midwestern charm. Mom managed the household with strict authority, while Dad was the easygoing comedian who took great joy in grilling steaks, as if it were his ultimate calling. I believed I had it all sorted: an unwavering family, dependable siblings, and a fiancé whom I was certain was my destined partner. Linda entered my life amidst a collaborative endeavor in my junior year at UChicago. She possessed an irresistible charm that captivated everyone around her, driven, self-assured, and undeniably alluring. I was captivated by her in no time. As the semester drew to a close, we found ourselves as a couple. It all seemed like a chaotic storm, yet I never thought to challenge it. It appeared flawless. I envisioned our life ahead, with careers, children, and all that comes with it. On a crisp November evening, I made my proposal to her. It wasn't a magnificent display, merely the two of us on a chilly autumn evening. She accepted, and we started to organize our wedding for the upcoming summer. It seemed like the beginning of the life I had always envisioned, and then everything fell apart in March. After a sluggish Friday at the office, I thought it would be a delightful surprise for Linda to treat her to her favorite takeout and enjoy a cozy evening together. As I stepped into our apartment, an unsettling sensation washed over me. Her shoes lay abandoned by the door, while an unsettling silence enveloped the space, broken only by the distant sound of laughter drifting from the bedroom. I attempted to dismiss it, assuming she could be on a call or enjoying a humorous clip. A nagging sense of unease lingered, as if something was amiss. As I swung the bedroom door wide, everything I knew came crashing down. In that moment, Linda and Chris found themselves entwined in the sheets, lost in each other's embrace. Linda donned the oversized t-shirt I had gifted her for Valentine's Day, the one adorned with the cheesy heart print. It was a matter of moments to connect all the dots. They stood still, resembling startled deer caught in the glare of oncoming headlights. It's amusing how quietness can convey so much. Chris, my own brother, had the audacity to claim it's not what it appears to be. I simply gazed at him, nearly chuckling at the absurdity of it all. Linda remained silent. She hurriedly pulled the blanket around herself, as though that simple act could somehow wipe away the image I had just witnessed. I remained silent, refraining from raising my voice or seeking answers. What purpose would that serve? The proof lay before my eyes. I glanced at Linda and said with a steady voice, "Gather your things and leave." I refused to grant them the pleasure of witnessing my unraveling. Chris attempted to stammer out an explanation about how it all unfolded, but I interrupted him. "You no longer exist in my world." I had no desire to listen to his justifications or insincere regret. There's no such thing as it just happened when it involved sharing a bed with your brother's fiancé. I stepped outside. I chose not to linger for an explanation or a feeble apology. That evening, I picked up my keys and set off to visit a friend's place. As I reclined, gazing at the ceiling, the weight of it all settled within me. The woman I envisioned spending my life with, my fiancé, and my brother, whom I held in high regard, have both turned against me in the most devastating manner imaginable. It transcended mere infidelity. It was the realization that they had both deliberately opted to dismantle something I cherished profoundly. The day after I discovered Linda and Chris, I never imagined that the situation could deteriorate further. Naturally, they did. During my time at work, Linda vacated the apartment. I had already instructed her to gather her things and depart, so I assumed that was the conclusion of the matter. Upon returning home that evening, I found a note resting on the counter, exactly in the spot where we once displayed a cherished photo of ourselves. It was brief, yet far from pleasant. She expressed that she had developed feelings for Chris and never intended to cause me pain, accompanied by some ramblings about wishing I could find it in my heart to forgive them. She had the nerve to conclude with, "I hope you can still find happiness for us one day." Thrilled for them, I felt the urge to laugh, yet it simply didn't strike me as humorous. It was utterly maddening. I folded the note and threw it away. No words remained for her. The apartment seemed devoid of life without her belongings, yet I remained indifferent. I simply wished for her departure from my life as swiftly as possible, and now she was gone. It took only a few days for my family to uncover what had transpired. I kept it to myself, but it seems Linda or Chris let the cat out of the bag. My mother, Susan, reached out to me right away. She was seething with anger, not directed at me, but rather at Chris. She repeatedly expressed her disbelief that her own son could betray me in such a manner. She continued to insist that he was not welcome here. Initially, it was reassuring to have her supporting me. Yet, I wasn't so foolish as to believe it would endure. My mother's loyalty has always come with strings attached. She took great pride in maintaining the unity of the family, even if it required burying significant betrayals beneath the surface. I knew it was just a question of when she would begin to stand up for Chris. My father, Brian, stood apart from the rest. When I finally picked up one of his calls, he offered little more than a sigh and remarked, "I suppose things like this occur from time to time." I was utterly astonished. He felt no anger, no upset, and certainly no surprise. He acted as if Chris had carelessly splashed coffee onto my shirt. It wasn't as if he had ruined my relationship and broken my trust in him. Jane, my younger sister, attempted to offer her support, yet I sensed her inner conflict. She reached out to see how I was doing and expressed her disbelief over Chris and Linda's actions, yet I could sense the uncertainty in her tone. She found herself in the midst of a tug-of-war between me and the rest of the family, and it was clear to see. For weeks, I turned a deaf ear to their incessant calls. I lacked the energy to revisit the events or entertain any justifications for why I should move on. Instead, I immersed myself in my tasks. It was the sole anchor that held me steady. My supervisor, Kevin, observed my extended hours and inquired if all was well. I held back some details, but I did confess that I was navigating through some personal challenges. That was the moment he brought up the Pittsburgh office. It seems they had been facing challenges in locating a suitable leader for the team, and Kevin believed I would be an ideal match. It was an opportunity for advancement and a way to escape Chicago, leaving behind Linda and the chaos they had woven together. I acted without a moment's pause. I expressed my interest in him. Why share the news of the move with my parents? My dad just replied, "Good for you. A new beginning could be just what you're looking for." My mom, in contrast, reacted as if I had declared I was moving to the moon. She wept and implored me to think again. "How do family dinners sound? What are your thoughts on Christmas? We can't be abandoned like this, Logan," she implored. I assured her that I wouldn't abandon them. I was departing from Chris. "He's no longer a member of this family," I declared with conviction, yet deep down, I doubted her words. My mom has a talent for expressing one idea and then acting in complete contradiction when it benefits her. By July, my intuition was validated. Chris had returned to the house. One evening, my mom called, casually mentioning that they had chosen to let him come home for a bit since he had nowhere else to turn. She pretended it was nothing, as if she wasn't welcoming the one who had wronged me into her space, all the while anticipating my presence at Sunday dinners. I made no effort to conceal my frustration. I expressed to her that it felt like a harsh blow to my pride that she was opting for him instead of me. She attempted to rationalize it, asserting he's still my son. I cannot refuse him. I retorted, "He's no longer my brother, and I have no desire to be involved with him. It was at that moment she launched her initiative for family cohesion. She continued to express the importance of healing and progressing together as a family. It was merely a facade to absolve Chris, allowing her to escape the weight of guilt for welcoming him back into her life. I refused to accept it. I expressed to her clearly that I had no desire for healing or to feign that everything was fine. Is there such a thing as family unity? Perhaps it's time to reconsider rewarding the individual who caused all this chaos, I remarked before ending the call. Following that, I maintained my distance. I was occupied with getting ready for the relocation to Detroit regardless. I discovered a new location, gathered my belongings, and embarked on a new beginning in a city where my family and history were unknown. Departing from Milwaukee proved to be quite a challenge. I cherished the memories I made there, and a part of me felt as though leaving meant conceding to Chris and Linda, but remaining would have been even more detrimental. Each street, each restaurant, every cherished memory, it all echoed the absence of what I once had. Relocating was the sole path to genuinely begin anew. When I departed, I had nearly severed all connections with my family. I ignored their calls and didn't reply to their messages. Even Jane's efforts to remain impartial had lost their significance. They had decided to welcome Chris back, while I had chosen to move on without them. The uncertainty of the future loomed ahead, yet one truth stood out unmistakably. I was finished with being the dutiful son who constantly prioritized family above all else. From this moment forward, I will prioritize myself. The moment had come to reconstruct according to my vision. By September, I had found my rhythm in my new life in Detroit. Severing connections with my family proved to be the most beneficial choice I ever made, despite the challenges it presented. Things at work were progressing nicely. I had begun to forge new friendships, and the separation from the tumult was precisely what I required. Then my mother, Susan, reached out to me. With her birthday approaching, she expressed her desire for me to return home for the celebration. I paused. Our connection had grown tense ever since she allowed Chris back into the home, yet she continued to insist, claiming it would only be immediate family and expressing how much she missed me. Despite my reservations, I found myself in agreement. The journey to my parents' house stretched on, leaving me ample opportunity to reconsider my choice. I convinced myself that this was for my mom, despite the disappointment she had caused me. Perhaps it wouldn't be too terrible if it were just her, my father, and Jane. As I arrived at the house, an unsettling feeling washed over me. The number of cars parked outside was excessive. A wave of unease washed over me as I spotted Chris's car in the driveway. My fingers tightened around the steering wheel as I wrestled with the idea of turning back. Yet I was determined not to grant my mom the satisfaction of retreating. I chose to enter, make it brief, and exit quickly. Upon entering the room, my mom welcomed me with a warm smile, as if nothing had ever transpired. "Logan, I'm so thrilled you arrived," she exclaimed, wrapping her arms around me in a warm embrace. Her energy was exuberant, as if she were attempting to resolve everything with an overwhelming determination. I surveyed the living room, and there they were, Chris and Linda, perched on the couch as if the weight of the world had never touched them. Linda audaciously laughed at something Jane said. I remained there, paralyzed by shock. "What brings them here?" I inquired, my tone subdued yet incisive. Before my mother could respond, she took hold of my arm and guided me deeper into the house. As we entered the living room, my mom launched into her familiar discourse on the importance of family healing. She took a seat beside me and began to articulate her thoughts on how Chris and Linda had erred but were genuinely remorseful, emphasizing that it was time for us to progress together as a family. Chris, always unreserved, interjected with, "I'm sorry, man, it just happened," as though it were merely a coffee spill on my shirt, rather than a catastrophe unraveling my existence. Linda continued, "We never intended to hurt you," but it sounded even more absurd coming from her. She didn't even attempt to feign remorse. I gazed at them, attempting to comprehend how they could be so convinced of their own fabrications. Their belief that this could be resolved was nearly comical. I leaned in closer, locked eyes with Chris, and declared, "You're a sorry excuse for a brother." Then I turned to Linda and said, "I hope he betrays you as well and brings you something unpleasant. I'm certain that if he doesn't, you will definitely betray him. You are perfectly matched for one another." The atmosphere fell into a profound stillness. I interrupted my mom before she could finish her thought. I rose to my feet, met her gaze directly, and declared, "Savor your golden boy. Please refrain from contacting me again. This family of yours no longer holds any significance for me." As I stepped outside, I could hear my mom attempting to soothe the situation, mentioning how I would eventually see things differently. Chris remained silent, while Linda simply lingered in her seat. I slipped into my car and drove away, leaving the past behind me. Thoughts surged through my mind. How could my mom believe this was acceptable? How could she anticipate that I would simply forgive and move on, as if these were merely trivial disagreements, rather than a betrayal that completely dismantled my existence? The remainder of the day was consumed by my efforts to find some relief, yet the anger lingered stubbornly. This scene kept playing in my mind, and I found myself longing to have expressed more. A part of me felt the urge to reach out to my mom and share everything, yet deep down, I understood it wouldn't change a thing. She had already decided when she welcomed Chris and Linda back into her life. That evening, I decided to block her number, as well as Chris's, despite the fact that he hadn't contacted me in months. I knew it was just a question of when one of them would attempt to set things straight again, and I really didn't want to engage with it. In the weeks that followed, I withdrew into my own world. Work became my refuge, and I immersed myself in every project that came my way. My colleagues likely perceived me as exceptionally committed, but the reality was that I was simply searching for a way to express my frustration. I also ceased my social media browsing, as viewing images of my family would merely bring back memories of past events, and I had no desire for that sort of negativity. I convinced myself that I was better off without them, yet still hurt to realize that those I once held in the highest regard had disappointed me so thoroughly. Gradually, I began to experience an improvement in my well-being. The space was beneficial, and I was gradually reconstructing my existence. I convinced myself that I could forge my own family with those who truly valued me. Yet beneath the surface, I understood that this was far from finished. My mom was never one to back down, and I sensed she would discover yet another method to pull me back into the chaos. For the time being, I found solace in maintaining my distance and concentrating on my own journey. Allow them to cherish their bond as a family. I would prefer solitude over being in the company of those who fail to appreciate my worth. If they chose to remain oblivious to the actions of Chris and Linda, that was entirely up to them. I had no intention of being involved. Uncertainty loomed ahead, yet one truth remained undeniable. I had reached my limit with allowing them to control my existence. From this moment forward, I would embrace life according to my own rules. By January, life in Pittsburgh had transformed into all that I had envisioned it to be. It was a relief to be far removed from the turmoil my family had generated. I found myself no longer waking up each day filled with anger. I found room to exhale, reflect, and concentrate on my own needs. It was then that Sarah, my distant cousin, made her way into my messages. I hardly knew her at all. Our encounters had been limited to a handful of family gatherings, and I doubt we had ever shared more than a few brief exchanges. When she reached out unexpectedly, mentioning her move to Pittsburgh and her need for assistance in settling down, I found myself feeling a bit doubtful initially. I considered the option of overlooking her message completely. My family had shown repeatedly that any involvement with them, even from a distance, was a misstep. Yet a part of me experienced a twinge of guilt. Sarah hadn't wronged me directly, and she may not even be aware of the complete narrative of what had transpired. Moreover, she appeared truly anxious about relocating to a new city by herself. Despite my reservations, I found myself agreeing to assist her. The weekend arrived, and I made my way to the location she provided. The apartment complex was modest, nestled in a serene corner of the town. As I drove into the parking lot, Everything appeared ordinary until my eyes landed on the U-Haul truck and two unmistakable figures unloading boxes, Chris and my dad. For a brief instant, I became still, clutching the steering wheel with such intensity that my knuckles blanched. My initial impulse was to reverse out of the parking lot and leave it all behind. Just as I was about to, the front door of the apartment swung open, and my mom stepped out. She noticed me right away and waved, as if we were at a family gathering rather than a setup. "Logan, hold on," she called out, running toward my car. I shifted the car into park, but remained still, not moving an inch closer. "What is this all about?" I inquired, motioning towards Chris and my father by the truck, appearing somewhat uncomfortable. My mom wore that familiar, weary expression, launching into her typical speech about how Sarah simply required support and how it was only logical for the family to unite. This was clearly not about Sarah in any way. It was about pushing me back into their harmful pattern of making up. Chris, a master of insincere remorse, moved closer, his eyes welling up with feigned tears. "I'm sorry, Logan," he said, his voice quivering as though he were performing for an audience. "I realize I made a mistake. My only desire is to make improvements." I gazed at him, unperturbed. His words echoed the same tired lines he had attempted at my mom's birthday celebration. At that moment, my father became involved. "Logan, please," he said, his voice laced with that familiar air of superiority he always adopted when he believed I was being difficult. "This grudge you're clinging to is causing a rift within the family. Rise above the situation." That was the end. His words struck a nerve, suggesting that Chris' betrayal was merely a trivial error I should simply move past, and that pushed me to my breaking point. He was completely unaware of the pain that comes from betrayal by your own brother, the anguish of losing not only a relationship, but also the faith you once held in those nearest to you. As my father moved nearer and rested his hand on my shoulder, I found myself lost in thought. My fist struck his face before I fully comprehended my actions. The piercing echo of collision reverberated, and for an instant, silence enveloped the scene. My father staggered backward, clutching his jaw, his eyes filled with disbelief. Chris appeared as if he wished to disappear entirely, while my mom, as expected, was overcome with tears. "Logan," she cried, as though I were the one destroying it all. Chris grumbled something quietly about me crossing a line, but I chose not to engage. I pivoted and made my way back, each step weighted as I approached my vehicle. "Don't follow me," I called over my shoulder. Upon arriving home, I promptly blocked Sarah's number without a second thought. I was indifferent to whether she was complicit in the plan or merely a naive participant. I had no desire to be involved with her at all. That evening, I found myself on the couch, attempting to make sense of the events that had just unfolded. I felt a twinge of disappointment in losing my composure, yet I held no regrets about it. My father had overstepped, and if it required a confrontation to make them realize that I would no longer be controlled, then so be it. The most painful aspect was the utter lack of surprise in all of this. My mother consistently showed a remarkable capacity for forgiveness towards Chris, regardless of the harm he inflicted. My dad prioritized keeping the peace over addressing the underlying problem. I found myself pondering the duration of their scheming. Had they been in conversation with Sarah for weeks, persuading her to contact me, or was this merely a spur-of-the-moment effort? No matter what, it was inconsequential. What truly counted was that I had managed to step away before they could pull me back in. The following morning, I awoke with an unusual blend of relief and melancholy. It was a sense of relief, knowing I had remained steadfast. Melancholy enveloped me, serving as yet another stark reminder of the depths to which my family had descended. This was beyond repair. They turned a blind eye to Chris and Linda's betrayal, choosing to remain oblivious to the truth, and they always would. I decided to sever connections even more deeply. I decided against granting them any further chances to drag me into their chaos. By December, I found myself in a significantly improved state, both emotionally and mentally. Life in Pittsburgh unfolded with a sense of calm and consistency. I began a relationship with Kelly, a 24-year-old woman who swiftly became my anchor. Her kindness, humor, and support were remarkable, but what stood out the most was her respect for my boundaries. She was aware of the turmoil within my family and never once urged me to reach out again. When she extended the invitation for me to join her family in Bay City for Christmas, I found myself truly anticipating the holidays for the first time in years. Her parents exuded warmth and hospitality. Her siblings were wonderful, and there was a refreshing absence of the drama that had consistently overshadowed my own family gatherings. Just a week prior to Christmas, an unexpected letter arrived in my mailbox. Initially, I nearly brushed it off due to the unfamiliar handwriting, but upon opening it, a wave of unease washed over me. It came from my mother. She mentioned that Chris and Linda had tied the knot and that my parents were now apart. She was vague with the specifics, yet she repeatedly stressed the importance of my presence for the family this Christmas. She pleaded for my return, yearning for an opportunity to mend and progress. I perused the letter twice, attempting to discern whether this was genuinely concerning me or merely another effort to rectify the chaos Chris had created. The thought of their marriage turned my stomach. It felt like a harsh awakening, a stark reminder that they had left behind everything without an ounce of regret. Upon presenting the letter to Kelly, she advised me to move on from it. "You don't owe them anything," she said softly. "If it's only going to cause you pain, there's no need to endure it." She was correct, yet a tiny fragment of me still experienced guilt, not for severing ties, but for the sense of duty my mother had always ingrained in me. Ultimately, I chose to celebrate Christmas with Kelly's family, in a snug abode nestled within the suburbs of Bay City. The moment we stepped through the door, I felt a reassuring certainty that my decision was indeed the right one. Her parents welcomed me with affectionate embraces, and her mom promptly inquired if I preferred hot chocolate or mulled cider. It was straightforward, pure, and unlike anything I had encountered in years. On Christmas Eve, we adorned the tree, whipped up some cookies, and engaged in lively board game sessions. It was the sort of holiday I had always dreamed of but never truly experienced. For once, I found myself in a moment of calm, free from the anticipation of an impending argument. The tranquility of Christmas morning remained unchanged. Kelly's family embraced a delightful tradition of unwrapping gifts while still in their cozy pajamas, and they even prepared a special stocking for me, adorned with my name. It was considerate, straightforward, and gave me a genuine sense of belonging. Yet, even in the midst of all that warmth and joy, thoughts of my family quietly occupied my mind. I found myself pondering their activities. Was my mom sitting in solitude at home? Was my dad even celebrating? Or were Chris and Linda merely putting on a facade of normalcy? I set the thoughts aside, immersing myself in the present moment. I refused to allow their theatrics to spoil this experience for me. In January, as I was finding my rhythm again, an email from Jane landed in my inbox. After months of silence, discovering her name in my inbox was quite the unexpected delight. Despite my reservations, I decided to open it. Jane mentioned that my dad was currently residing in a motel, while Chris and Linda were facing financial difficulties. She alluded to Chris's precarious job situation and suggested that Linda was dissatisfied in their marriage, though she refrained from elaborating further. I gazed at the screen, pondering why Jane believed this information was essential for me to grasp. Was she seeking compassion? Did she think I would come in and make everything right? If that were the case, disappointment awaited her. I chose not to reply to the email. What was I meant to express? While I empathize with your situation, it doesn't directly concern me. I had no intention of being pulled back into their chaos, regardless of how dire their situation became. Their decisions were made, and now they must face the outcomes. Yet, a part of me sensed a sense of validation. They were facing difficulties, and although I found no joy in their pain, I couldn't shake the feeling that fate was finally addressing their past actions. Chris and Linda had shattered my existence, and now their seemingly flawless world was beginning to show signs of wear. Kelly observed my unusual silence that evening and inquired if all was well. I shared the details of the email with her, and she simply nodded, her demeanor gentle yet resolute. You've put in the effort to move forward, she remarked. Resist the urge to be drawn back in. She was indeed correct. I had invested so much effort into reconstructing my existence that I wouldn't allow their issues to throw me off course at this point. What was unfolding with my family was no longer my burden to bear. The following morning, I removed Jane's email and blocked her address. It was a challenge, yet it was essential. I refused to allow them to manipulate me with guilt or pity to re-enter my life. That Christmas with Kelly's family seemed like a pivotal moment. For the first time, I understood what it truly meant to break free from the toxicity that had surrounded me in my upbringing. I was not seeking my family's approval or validation. I discovered individuals who valued me for my true self rather than for any contributions I could make to their lives. The tumult of my history would no longer dictate my identity. I had crafted a fresh existence, and I had no intention of glancing back. By June, I was pleased with the progress I had made. Life was steady. Each day, my bond with Kelly deepened, while my family faded into the background of my life. I severed all connections, dismissing every insincere effort to reach out and concentrating solely on my own health and happiness. Yet, naturally, they had more in store for me. On a Saturday morning, just as I was getting ready for a run, a knock echoed through my door. Surprise washed over me as I glanced through the peephole, and in that moment, I felt a chill run down my spine. It was Jane. It had been more than a year since I last laid eyes on her, and for just a fleeting moment, I considered the idea of feigning my absence. Finally, I turned the handle and stepped through the threshold. The moment she caught sight of me, her emotions overflowed and tears streamed down her face. "Logan, I'm truly sorry," she cried, moving into the hallway before I could even extend an invitation for her to come in. "I ought to have defended you more strongly. I could have accomplished so much more." Her apology surprised me. For an extended period, Jane had occupied a role of quiet presence in my life. A person who never caused me direct harm, yet also failed to defend me in any way. Her willingness to take responsibility caught me off guard, leaving me unsure of how to react. I severed my connections with Chris and Linda. She continued, dabbing at her tears. And Mother, I reached my breaking point. I crossed my arms and rested against the doorframe. "What is it that you desire, Jane?" She paused, her eyes brimming with fresh tears. "I simply wish to converse. Father wishes to have a conversation as well. Could we arrange a meeting, please?" I ought to have declined. Every fiber of my being urged me to close the door and leave it all behind. Yet there was an undeniable quality in her gaze, a silent plea, a sense of urgency that caused me to hesitate. Despite my reservations, I consented. Several days later, we gathered at a serene diner located on the fringes of the city. Jane was already seated alongside our father, Brian. It had been ages since our last encounter. Since that moment, I struck him outside Sarah's apartment, and the air was heavy with unspoken words. As I drew near, he rose to his feet, extending his hand in greeting. I did not take it. I took a seat opposite them and patiently awaited the first word from one of their lips. Apologies escaped his lips, a quiet murmur filled with regret. I could have taken greater steps to safeguard you. I could have approached the situation in a better way. It may not have been significant, yet it exceeded my expectations. For a brief instant, a glimmer of hope ignited within me. Perhaps there is a way to salvage the situation. Suddenly, the door to the diner swung open, and in walked my mom. I felt a sudden tension rise within me. Brian had the grace to appear sheepish. She desired to attend, he remarked, as though that clarified anything at all. And naturally, right behind her were Chris and Linda. I rose to my feet, prepared to depart. However, Jane seized my arm. "Logan, I urge you to listen to them." That was the end. I rose to my feet, interrupting my mom before she could utter a single word. "I declare that you are no longer my family. My voice is icy. If you're seeking absolution, look for another to deceive. I'm finished." I turned to Jane and remarked, "Jane, what you did was utterly disgraceful and truly malicious. You demonstrate that this family is rife with manipulators and deceitful individuals. Trust is something I can no longer extend to you. You are no longer part of my life, and if any of you attempt to reach out to me again, I will take legal action to ensure my boundaries are respected. I tossed some money onto the table for my coffee and exited, disregarding the voices that trail behind me. In that instant, I realized there was no way to go back. No amount of begging, pleading, or tears would change my mind. I had reached my limit of being the target for their chaos. At 28, it seems I've experienced multiple lifetimes since the upheaval within my family began. Reflecting on it now, it feels almost surreal, as if it occurred to another person entirely. Yet the scars serve as an unyielding testament to the undeniable reality of it all. The positive aspect is that I've emerged more resilient, more insightful, and in the company of those who genuinely value me. Last year, Kelly and I took the exciting step of getting engaged. It was a simple moment, just the two of us at our beloved park in Pittsburgh. I refrained from making a grand gesture, having come to understand that true love doesn't require such displays. Upon my proposal, she was overcome with emotion and instantly accepted. That moment was like the last piece of a puzzle I had been working on since everything came crashing down. She's not merely my fiancé. She's my companion in every possible way. She has been there for me through every high and low, offering a listening ear without any judgment, and has never attempted to steer me back to the family I chose to leave behind. Being with her brings a sense of security I never imagined I could experience. The most exciting news is that we are anticipating the arrival of our first child, a boy. Whenever I imagine the moment I finally hold him, a wave of exhilaration and anxiety washes over me. I never imagined I would feel prepared for fatherhood, particularly given the tumultuous environment of my upbringing. Yet the faith that Kelly has in us fills me with optimism. I wholeheartedly believe that we will strive to provide our son with a life rich in love, respect, and stability, the very essence of the life I longed for. One of the initial actions I undertook to completely cut connections with my family was altering my last name. I took my time with it. For quite a while, I lingered in doubt, pondering whether it was too radical or if it would truly make a difference. As time went on, I came to understand that my last name was a weight tethering me to a painful history, and I was prepared to release it. Standing in the courthouse, filling out the paperwork, was an oddly surreal experience. As the judge's signature marked the end, a profound sense of relief washed over me, akin to finally sealing a door I had long hesitated to close. I selected a surname that resonated deeply with me, one connected to a personal hero instead of my ancestral lineage. Kelly wholeheartedly backed my choice. She even playfully remarked that she'd adopt my new last name once we tie the knot, saying, "We're beginning our own legacy now." That truly resonated with me. The concept of bringing forth something original, something distinct from all the hurt and treachery, became my central pursuit. Since I severed connections with my family, I've picked up fragments of information about their happenings. Not that I actively pursue it, but occasionally mutual acquaintances inadvertently bring it up. It seems that my parents have officially separated now. My father resides in a modest rental on the fringes of town, while my mother remains in the family home, striving to uphold a facade. Regarding Chris and Linda, it seems that fate has not favored them. They find themselves overwhelmed by financial burdens, and it seems their relationship is teetering on the edge. Linda has faced the unfortunate loss of her job, while Chris finds himself in a similarly precarious work situation. I see the irony clearly. Despite all their efforts to undermine me, it is they who now find themselves fighting to keep their heads above water. Jane is also struggling. Her betrothed departed just months prior to their nuptials. The specifics elude me, and to be frank, they don't concern me. Her decision to support Chris and Linda during the critical moment is something I find unforgivable. The most recent communication I received from any of them was over a year ago, when my mother sent me yet another letter pleading for me to reach out again. I didn't bother to open it at all. I discarded it without a second thought. Their current feelings of regret are solely theirs to bear, not mine. A significant insight I've gained from this experience is the crucial role of establishing boundaries. For an extended period, I allowed my family to manipulate my emotions, pressuring me into forgiveness and making me feel accountable for their issues. Severing ties proved to be a challenging endeavor. It was chaotic, yet it was the sole path for me to genuinely progress. At times, I find myself pondering whether my family reflects on their decisions with a sense of regret. Do they reflect on the hurt they inflicted? Are they aware of the magnitude of what they've forfeited through their betrayal? I may never find out, and that's perfectly fine. Whether they feel remorse or not is irrelevant now. What truly counts at this moment is that I have ultimately discovered tranquility. Walking away from toxic relationships can be incredibly challenging, particularly when those connections involve family. Yet, at times, it's the sole path to safeguard your tranquility and craft the existence you are worthy of. There's no requirement to maintain relationships with those who are connected to you by blood. Family transcends mere blood relations. It revolves around those who stand by your side, offer their unwavering support, and cherish you without conditions. With Kelly beside me and our little one on the way, I finally have the family I've always dreamed of. Dear audience, we invite you to express your opinions in the comment section below. Also, remember to like, share, and subscribe.